Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to discuss about the chain of the responsibility pattern. That is a part of the behavioral pattern. So you can see that in the behavioral design pattern, we have multiple pattern, right? So chain of the responsibility is one of the patterns. So we'll discuss in detail of the chain of the responsibility, how it works, what is the advantage, disadvantage. When we should go for the chain of the responsibility, and we'll take on code also. We'll write on code also to understand it. So behavioral design pattern are concerned with the interaction and the responsibility of the object, right? In a chain of the responsibility, the sender send a request to the chain of the object. Okay. So here we see that each and every person just considered as a object. Okay. When sender send a one bucket is the request. Just consider this bucket is the request. When the sender send a request, right, as a bucket to the object, the any object can handle this request. Okay. So that means request can be handled by anybody. It's not like a very specific person can handle the request. Okay, so that's loose coupling is here. Similarly, you can take the example of when we call to the customer care support, right, for any of our request or any of our query, right? So when you call it for the request, that request goes to the system, right? From system, it will ask few of the question, specific question. When you press the button, it will go to the specific the employee, okay, specific department, I mean to say. And then again, if it is not solved, then they will forward this right, request to the other department, right? So this is also the kind of the I'm sending the request and the different object, right? Different department is handling the request. If the first department is not able to handle here, okay, they will transfer to the next department, right? If this object is also not able to handle, then they will transfer to the other object. So this is the chain of the responsibility, right? So every object is responsible for the handling the request. Okay. Let's talk about the real life example. Here in our real life, right, we get the IT issue. Okay. Everything is simple, then it will go to the frontline support, and frontline support manager can handle this one. Okay. This if the frontline manager able to handle it, then that request is goes here itself. Okay. If frontline manager is not able to handle, okay, or frontline support people are not able to handle, then this request will transfer to the other, right, the second line of the support manager. And if support manager is second line of the support manager is able to handle the request, then fine, right? If second line of the support manager is not able to handle the request, then it will go to the next line of the right team. So that will be the internal support managers, and that these guys will try to handle. If finally it will not get to handle, then the on-site supporter people will start looking into this. So this is kind of the we have the object, different object like frontline support managers, second line support manager, internal support manager, and on-site support manager. These are the objects. Okay, so they are taking the request, trying to handle it. If they will handle it, fine. Otherwise, they will transfer this request to the other object. Okay, so this will be the request will go in a chain. What is the definition of the chain of the responsibility? Avoid coupling the sender of the request to its receiver by giving the multiple object a chance to handle the request. Okay, so first thing is we are avoiding the coupling from the sender request to the particular receiver. Okay, because any of the receiver can receive and they can handle the request. In a chain of the responsibility, the sender sends a request to the chain of the objects, okay, and request can be handled by the object in the chain. So any of the object in a chain, right, can handle the request. We can say that normally each receiver contains a reference of the other receiver, right? If one of the object cannot handle the request, then it will passes the same to the next receiver and so on. So here also we can set the reference, right? So from one receiver to other receiver, we can set the reference. So this one we'll see in the example. How we can set the reference once one object is not able to receive, then he can pass to the that reference object. Okay. Now here is the UML diagram. You can see it. So client and client request to the handler, and then here the concrete handler too. And we can see that the successor, right? So successor, that means we can set the successor of one object to other object. So if any request is coming and the first object is trying to handle it, if that first object is not able to handle that request, then it will pass to the successor object. Okay, so we can set the successor of the each and every object. Okay, so for example, if I have the manager, right, manager for the approval wise manager CEO, right, I can set the once it will request go to the manager. If manager is not able to handle, then directly it will, so I will set the successor of the manager to the CEO. So then request will directly go to the CEO. So we'll see this one in one of the right example. So where and when the chain of the responsibility is applicable, when you want to decouple a request sender and receiver. So first thing is when you want to decouple the request and receiver part. So we know that in the chain of the responsibility, when we send the request, right, any of the receiver can uh, receive the request and work on this, right? So multiple object determine the runtime, determined at the runtime are candidate to handle the request. So multiple object is there, they can try to handle the object, right? When you don't want to specify the handler explicitly in your code, okay? So any of the, in this case, any of the object will, right, try to handle the request. If you specify like, if you give the successor, then the request will go to the right from that object to the next successor object. Okay. So when you want to issue a request to one of the several objects without specifying the receiver explicitly, so we'll see that the advantage of the chain of the responsibility pattern, it reduces the coupling, right? So this is the advantage. So once the coupling is right reduced, then it's easy to maintain the code. Okay. It adds the flexibility while assigning the responsibility to the object. It allows a set of the classes to act as a one event produced in one class can be sent to the other handler class with the help of the composition, right? So chain of the responsibility design pattern, some of the important points we'll discuss here. So client does not know which part of the chain will be responsible for the right, which part of the chain is processing that request. So client don't know. Client just send a request, and then we have a lot of right object that is that's supposed to handle that request. So any of the object will handle the request, but client don't know about this, which object is handling the request. Okay, and it will send the request to the first object in a chain. Right. For example, in our program, right, like ATM dispense chain. In ATM system, when we try to withdraw the money, right, it we just send as a request, and from inside, right, the ATM, it process it. It will go to the different object, right? It takes 100 rupees, 200, 500, right? Uh, Currency and finally distance. So as a user, we don't know like what is the process, which are the object is handling the request, but finally we get the output. Each object in the chain will have its own implementation to process the request. Okay. So each and every object in the chain have their own implementation. They can process their requests independently, either full or partial, or send it to the next object in a chain. So they each and every object can set the successor also. Every object in the chain should have the reference to the next object, okay, in a chain to forward the request. So that we are already talked about the successor, right? The chain of the responsibility design pattern is good to achieve the loose coupling, but come with the trade-off of having a lot of implementation classes and maintenance problem. If most of the code is common in all of the implementation. So see the when we implement this chain of the responsibility, we have to create multiple classes. Okay, the code will be huge, but it's easy to maintain. So here I have just created one right graph here. Here I have created the chain, how the request will come and how the object will handle it. So suppose request is coming and this is the chain of the responsibility, right? These are the object is there and request is coming once. Then it will go to the right request managing director. Okay. If managing director is able to handle the request, right? Is suppose something is coming for the approval in an industry and if it is going to the managing director, if he will able to right approve that request, then it's fine. Otherwise, he will send to the next level of or his successor, the request president, right? Otherwise, finally, it will go to the CEO, right? So this is basically the like kind of the chain. Each and every object are connected with the successor, and they will try to handle the request. Now we'll take one example and try to understand it through code. Thank you. And here is the sample code, and I will try to explain it how to implement the chain of the responsibility design pattern. So what we can do it first. First we'll see the UML diagram, and after that we'll come back to the code. So here is the UML diagram for the chain of the responsibility. So this is the one of the client, and then we have the handler, right? So it will be the interface, and we'll have the like process request and set successor method we'll have it. So to the process request, we'll process the request, and then it will get handled by the concrete handler, right? So all the process requests will get handled by either the managing director, or president, or CEO, right? So this will be basically the set successor will be the abstract method, okay, and this set successor will implement in the managing director class, right? Re-implement, and the same way in the president and CEO also we will override set successor method, okay. So let's move to the code. So here what I'm doing, I have created one class where the new office purchase setup. Okay. So what we will do for the new office, what are the things is required like number of the product, total order quantity and project name for which project we are going to buy this. And then the constructor, in this constructor we are passing three parameters to set assign the value, right? Whenever the object will get created for the new office setup purchase. Okay, and after that I have created the I approval interface, and here the set successor method is there, and process request, and this I approval interface that we are going to inherit into the A approval class, T approval class. Okay, so T approval class that will have the set successor we need to write define again, and process request, these two methods again we need to define. So what process request we will do, process request will pass the new office setup purchase object, okay, and this is the virtual method, virtual option. So this method will become the abstract method, and the T approval class will become the abstract class, right? Now we need to create the concrete handler classes, right? That is going to handle, okay, that is going to approve, okay. So if any request will come, we know that the chain of the responsibility design, right? Whenever the user will send any request, like any of the object, right, within a chain will try to process the request, okay. So if you set the successor, then only the like successor will when the request will not get handled by any of the object, then the successor of that object, right, will try to handle it, right. Now here this is the abstract method. So process request in the managing director, if you see that this is the concrete handler. So we have three concrete handler: managing director class, president class, and CEO. So it's depend on the like, and in each classes, right, managing director is getting like it's inheriting the T approval class. Similar with the president also T approval class, and we will implement the process request, that is the abstract method, into over the managing director class. Okay. So these the concrete handler like yeah classes, right? Here the different logic is there, for the approval for the particular request. Okay. So if you see that the for managing director, what is the process request? Okay, and the process request having the object of the new office setup purchase class. Okay, so let's see here. So if the purchase item, right, is less than 10 crore, then so if the purchase item is less than the 10 crore, then the managing director can approve the request, right? If it is not the like less than less than 11 crore, if the purchase order is less than 11 crore, okay, then managing director can approve this request. And else what if we will check the successor, if successor is right, not equal to nil, that means something is defined the successor for managing director, okay, then it will go to the successor, right? This request will go to the successor object. So that successor object will be handle the request. Okay. If the request is get handled here itself in the fine, right? It will not go to the successor. But if this request is not getting handled by the manager, then it will check the successor is defined, right, for this managing director. Then it will go to the next successor, like whoever the successor object, that will take the responsibility to approve the request. Similarly, in the president also the process request. So some on the basis of the sum of the amount, right? The either managing director can approve and then the president can approve if less than, right, 101 crore. Just we are assuming that it should be more than 11 crore and less than 101 crore. Okay. And again that if the president is able to approve this one, then fine. Otherwise, it will go to the what is the successor is assigned for the president. Okay. Similar for the CEO here. Okay. So for the CEO also the same. If less than 1,100 crore, right, total amount order is there, then CEO can approve. Otherwise, it will go for the board of the director or board of the CEO will get approved. Okay. So I have considered it the managing director and after that president, right, the successor and the CEO. So here I'm in the client call. Here I'm setting that for the managing successor I'm setting the president, and for the president successor I'm setting the CEO. Okay, and we'll see that what is the successor, right? So on the successor we are just setting the like interface. Okay, and after that we'll see about the how the client right request will come. So here I have taken the object of the I approval, right? Managing director of type I approval, president and CEO, purchase item, variable type, new office set purchase. Okay. Then I'm creating the object and assigning to these variables. And then here I'm setting the successor. So first, like complete class, right? The managing director, I'm set the successor president. So object I'm just passing here, setting the successor, right? And similarly, for the president, set the successor is CEO. Okay. So first thing is right. Then the request will go to the managing director. If managing director will able to handle the request, right? Suppose the first request, I'm just creating the object for the new office setup purchase. Okay, I'm passing the see the what we are doing is the new office computer purchase. Okay, and this is the amount. So what is the computer purchase amount is 10 crore. Okay, so what will happen? First thing the object is created, the purchase item is the object, and then we are sending the this request to the managing director, right? So here the managing director that the object that process request I'm passing the object of the right tuning office setup purchase. Okay. So what will happen? It will go here and object managing director that process request. So this is managing director that process request. It will go here and try to check it. If this is the request will get handled, then fine. Otherwise, it will go to the successor. So we know that the successor for the managing director is the president. Then it will go to the president. Right here, the code will go. If president will able to approve, then fine. Otherwise, it will go to the CEO level. Right. So let's run and we'll see that, right? How this thing line by line, and we'll try to understand. So I'm just debugging. Okay, on the click of the chain of the responsibility button, here this code will code will get executed, and this is the memo where all the messages will print. Okay. So here the object is getting created and assigned it. Okay. Let's see here that we are setting the successor for this. So managing director we are setting the successor president, and for the president we are setting the successor CEO object. Okay. So the set successor we need to pass the object of the complete class. Okay. Now what I'm doing here, I'm creating the object of the new office setup purchase, and what the new project is there, the new office computer purchase, and amount is 10 crore. Okay. So let's F7 build the constructor will get call. Now the process request, right? So F7 again. Now here we'll see that the total amount is 10 crore. So it is less than the 11 crore, right? So then that means the managing director can approve the request. Okay, I'm just writing this line into the memo, and then it right then else part will not go, and directly the request is approved right here. A request is handled, then it will come out. So for this request, right, um, this request is handled by the managing director class, right? Now next is the again what we are doing again we are I'm filling the object purchase item object and creating right the new object passing the parameter relevant parameter. So the new office software purchase project software purchase. Okay. So what is the purchase cost here? It's 100 crore. Okay. So now we will process the request for this. So it will go to the managing director. Okay, and then it will check it here 100 crore. So it's not less than 100, 11 crore. 100 is not less than 11 crore. So it will go to the else one. And what is the successor? So for the managing director, successor is president, right? So it will go to the F successor that process request. It will go to the president, right? It will go to the president and it will execute it. I didn't put the break one, that's why it did not go. Right. So next we'll see that again I'm freeing the object of the purchase item and creating the new office setup purchase class object, right? And here the project is new office building purchase. So what is the cost for the building? 1,000 crore, right? Now we'll see that again the managing director dot process request. So we'll see here this is the 1,000 crore, so it is not less than 11 crore. So obviously it will go to the else part, and here again it will go to the successor. So now the managing director successor is the president. So it's going to the president this call, right? Process request. And this is 1,000 crore is less than 101, right? It's false. So again it will go to the else part. And it will again process request for the successor, right? So it will go to the CEO. And here it will be the 1,000 crore is less than the 1,001 crore. So in this case the CEO will approve the request. Okay. Now next is the our request is 3,000 crore. Right, sorry, expense is 2,000 crore. The new building resource right expense yearly. So in this we will see that how the request is going. So we are calling the managing director at process request here. This is false, so else part it will go to the successor. Here also it is false, right? So it will go to the successor. And here the total amount is 2,000. So even the CEO cannot approve, right? So it will go to the else part and that's printing the message. The group of CEO board of the director approval is required for this. So this is the chain of the responsibility. You can see that when printing the messages, managing director approve, president approve, CEO approve, and finally the 3,000 right employee. Okay, the group of CEO board of director approval is required.